So thank you everybody for joining today. So let's get started because really having a real estate empire is not about just doing it by yourself. It's really about building a team. So I love this quote, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And Vince and I were both investors. So we've constantly been building up our power team, even though we've
Well,
invested for a few years.
I think that's kind of the thing, Brooke, because a lot of people, when they get into investing, they think it's just a one-man show and they try to do everything on their own. Most people, when they talk about investing, they're talking about mutual funds or stocks or whatever, or when they buy their first real estate investment property and they just try to do everything and figure everything on their own. And then that's usually when you get all those the statements of real estate is risky, or I don't want to be a landlord because there's so much problems. I just got myself another job. And I think that's the problem that people don't realize. It's like being a mom and pop, right? Mom and pop shop.
Exactly. And actually, surprisingly, when I started to go out and build a market with students, I actually found that because we've been doing this for a while, we thought, hey, we're just talking to people a bit about business. However, if you want to do it more efficiently, we'll talk about, hey, how do we communicate with different team members? And if you're focusing on different strategies, who are going to be on your power team, who is going to help you build your real estate empire. Hence the topic, the formula for real estate investing success, because really this is a huge part of it. I put a picture there of the award winners at Trust Your Talent who have some results as well. Also the training team and the coaching team, because really we're all running the real estate investing business all together. So that's where Vince and I will chime in today to speak about the topic. And I really do want to know, while you're building your business, if you can share some of your learnings or some of the things you really want to get out of this panel as well. First thing first, we want to do everything legally, ethically. As much as I want to be a smart lawyer and accountant, Vince and I are really here to talk to you from the investor's perspective. Victor, I love that you're reading the fine print. I'll make sure that you get a copy. So, Victor, if you don't have a strategy coach yet, I want to make sure you have a strategy coach who can reach out to you and send this to you. Victor, are you working with anybody on the team as a strategy coach yet?
No, not yet. But I'm pretty interested. I'm trying to set up three funds on the real estate side, mortgage financing, and then property development, as well as income producing funds. So yeah, I definitely need a whole team.
Okay, for sure. So Vince can also reach out to you. However, if you have questions or if you want material, make sure you reach out to Vince. So we want to get you covered.
Yeah, I believe it's gonna be a team sport, right? It's not gonna be a single solo thing, and I think we need each other. We're all endowed with different skill sets. So yeah, we're definitely worth talking. So please go ahead and teach us.
Sure. Thank you, Victor, for joining us today. And I always ask students to turn on your camera, because when we say a quiet investor is a broke investor, even when you're turning on your camera, you're starting to let people see you. And I think that's the easiest way for you to be out there to get yourself started. And really, this is a safe environment. Personally, I'm very shy, so I get that. Even for you to turn on the camera, sometimes it takes courage and sometimes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's totally fine unless it's unsafe for you to turn on your camera. I do encourage you to turn on your camera because I love a live environment. I get that. We're all in different places. Like Christina and Kelvin, they're in YVR. So some in BC, some in Ontario here today. The good thing about technology is, hey, you can be anywhere. By the way, I just want to, by show of see where you are. By show of hand, you have read the book 4 Hour Working Week. If not, make sure you do, because really it doesn't matter where you are because the technology is there. And as an investor, it's really important for you to manage your time. So first step, how do you manage your time? Leverage other people's time, leverage other people's experience. So even though I'm not an accountant or even financial planner, tax advisor, I do want you to put your investor's hat on. And Vince and I are here to put our investor's hat on so we can help you navigate throughout the process.
Well, it's a good point that because we are not here as financial planners or accountants and whatnot, but coming from a perspective of an investor, it's a different standpoint, right? Everybody's going to have their own point of view. For example, accountants and lawyers, they kind of go against each other all the time, but they're not wrong. They're just coming from what they know best from their own perspective. And as investors, we do the same thing. We know what's best as an investor, and we take all the different perspectives from financial planners, accountant, advisors, lawyers, and we take all of that in perspective and make the proper decision as an investor, what's going to benefit for us and how we're going to use that to grow our portfolio and protect ourselves as investors as well and continue to grow and scale our portfolio. So I just want to point that out there for everybody here. And you're right, like our time is so valuable. And the thing is, if you don't know how to manage your time, you won't have time. And the big part of why we're doing this is not to buy ourselves another job and not spend all that time learning all the things that professionals have already taken years to do. We're one individual, and if we had to learn everything that the lawyer does or tax advisor does, it's going to take us absolutely forever to do that. And so we surround ourselves with these professionals and leverage all their knowledge, their experience, and their time for our own business as well.
Thank you, Vince. And one more thing I do want to remind you is that, hey, if we use acronyms, if you're not familiar with the terms, raise your hand. And sometimes it's intentional because I do want you to write it down so you can remember what you learned here. If you're just reading it, you probably get 20% of it. If you start to write it down, maybe you'll get 50%. Personally, I like to see it and I would like to digest. So it's really good that we're here basically as a simulation. It's perfectly fine if you're making a mistake because it's a safe environment. And we're not saying we never make mistakes. However, like Vince said, why don't you leverage what we've learned and the mistakes we've made already? So OPK, leverage other people's knowledge. K stands for knowledge. If you've never seen those terms, write it down. Vince touched upon the time. OPT, leverage other people's time. I know you understand OPM if you have already learned a little bit about investing. So leverage other people's money. And we don't have all the time in the world. So definitely leverage other people's time. And OPE, leverage other people's experience. It takes a lawyer 8 years to gain some experience. So why not leverage it? And really, when we talk about power team, that's what we want to do. We want to be efficient. So you're in the driver's seat. If you can read Chinese, the little circle I put in there, just as a reminder for myself. If not, I do like to repeat it so you can hear it and remember it. Or you can take a picture and Google Translate. You don't have to be the smartest person. However, if you see somebody smart, make sure you leverage their wisdom. And if somebody is strong, leverage their strength. If you're scared, it's okay. Sometimes we're always scared. And Vince talked about being uncomfortable. And that's really about how to conquer fear. If you're scared, let us hold your hand and leverage other people's courage. If you're none of the above, but you know somebody who is the analytical, and sometimes analytical are scared. That's why they need all the evidence. And sometimes they're the best person to go for advice because they check your blind spot. They think about different points. Leverage their talent for doing that, to do your due diligence. And finally, if you're none of the above, which is okay. And that's why you want to leverage your team. Okay, and that's why you're here. Leverage other people's knowledge. And I've also mentioned so many things you can leverage. So let's get ourselves started to set yourself up for success. I mentioned, hey, if you're just reading the slide, which is okay, you can reach out to us and look through the slides again. And sometimes you need to read it a few times. Also, this is recorded. And if you want to share the wealth, the knowledge with somebody you know, we're going to put it on YouTube. So you can hear the words again and watch it again. And finally, write it down, like I said, talk about it. By the way, if your spouse or your partner is not here with you, raise your hand in the group. All right. So another thing you can do is discuss it with your loved ones. Whatever you've learned, or perhaps you have some takeaways, you're looking for somebody to share it with. That's why
Or teach your kids.
teach your
Teach your
kids.
kids. Like that's probably the best thing. If you could teach your kids and your kids understand it, then you're teaching, like you're actually able to regurgitate what you're learning. So
I
powerful.
love that. I love that, Vince, because I think I should do more of that with my kids. And if your kids have at least grade 6, 7, 8 math ability, really investing about return on investment and profit, they can start to calculate the numbers and run their own due diligence already. So I love that. Actually, a big portion of the people in the group are turning on your camera so I can see that you're focused. And I get that sometimes you have to pick up the kids, you have things in the background. However, if it's safe for you, make sure you're focused and you participate here. Because it's really when you're participating, you remember how it feels. That's what's making it 100%. So when I teach, and Vince, when you share the experience, we feel that, hey, we're thinking about a better way of presenting and learning as well for ourselves. And I do want you to have fun with Vince and myself here. When you're having fun, you remember how it feels. Do you have the experience where you remember what you did in grade 3? You don't remember what the teacher said. Even in university, that's probably more recent. However, you remember how much fun you had. So people never remember exactly what you said to them, but they'll always remember how they make you feel. So that's not my quote, and I'm paraphrasing. However, it is telling you that people really resonate and feel it when they're learning, and they will remember it much better. We always start from why, even though sometimes it might sound like a cliche. Regardless, it's not the beginning of the year. You still need to think about what are my goals? And if you already have your goals in terms of financing, in terms of real estate investing, what's stopping you from going a step forward? So I'm going to give you a chance to participate and let Vince and I learn what's stopping you. Perhaps you want to leverage other people's money, knowledge, their time. So put in the vote. By show of hand that you can see my share screen and the poll. Okay, you're voting already, so I know that you can see it. Also, depending on the group, if I see that, hey, you're here to learn about networking, other people's knowledge, other people's time, I will be mindful. So we will point you in the right direction. If you're looking for motivation, yes, being in an environment with motivated learners and real estate investors, I'm sure you'll be motivated. And if you're thinking about taking action, even being here, I see a lot of new faces today, which is great because usually in the beginning of the year, we have a lot of people pumped and wanting to learn. It's already the third quarter of the year. So if you're thinking about what you want to achieve towards the end of the year, perhaps you should really start to take action. It's never the right time or wrong time to do that. So I'm going to share results with everybody. Can everybody see my shared screen? All right. Most people are here to be educated. So to maximize your learning, make sure you take action and you can reach out to your strategy coaches. If you don't have a strategy coach yet, Vince is here today. So reach out to Vince and we will lay out your journey for you. So take you step by step. We'll start by first thing first. Talk about what your goals are and why you're here. Focus on the strategy and start to build a power team that's going to help you towards making your goals come true or focusing on the strategy and market. So yes, we will focus on the knowledge and of course, talk about how to leverage other people's time, money, and experiences. Okay. So thank you everybody for putting in the answer. So that's the first step of participating. And thank you, Joshua. I also see that, hey, some of you are on your phone. I understand that you're on the go. Regardless, you're participating and spending your time with us. So if you think resources is what you need, that's why you're in a community. And if you're thinking you need more knowledge, for sure, we're constantly learning as well. So we do want to provide you with knowledge and our experience as well. And first thing first, if you're only thinking about it, thinking about taking action, thinking about working towards your goal. If you're only thinking about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. And of course, we're going to go through some real examples and we're going to share experiences that we have. I do want to hear what your experiences are when you're approaching different power team members and building your power team. And that is why when we go on the live mentorship, usually the first thing on the first day is meeting different power team members because we focus on one market, one strategy. And with the time you have, you want to make sure you utilize it in the most efficient way. So you schedule meetings with your power team members or schedule showings. If you're
Who
still
actually
at the
had a
beginning
strategy
stage
coach
as well.
call before? Anybody in the room had a strategy coach call before? Just in the room by a show of hands? And Lewis, how was your call? Because I know you had a call recently too. How was that?
It was great. The strategy coach, I have Mike as my strategy coach, and he took the time to understand my history,
Yeah.
my fear, and what I want to get to, what my success looks like. We spent actually quite a bit of time just to understand that, and then he recommend appropriately in terms of what to take. Right. So he didn't try to oversell or try to push me into somewhere I don't think is fit. Actually told me, okay, you know what, I think this is the best approach. Let's see how it goes. And then, if you feel that there's more that's needed at that point, then we can always talk about it.
Awesome. And Christina, you had your hand up. I know we talked as well. Want to share a little bit of your experience, you and Kelvin?
Well, I talked with many strategy coaches, actually. A lot of you guys were very, very open, actually, to, giving us your guys' perspectives is also trying to see where we're also coming from. And yeah, I mean, I think each of you kind of have your own different questions to tweak out what we would like to answer or we can answer, which is actually nice because it got our thought juices flowing from every which way. And kind of knowing what do we want first? What is the goal? What is the why? And how much, I guess, how much time and investment we need to have to put in here. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're really just there to help you guys, and you guys have all the answers. We're there to guide you, and if anything, extract the data that's in your mind. And sometimes you already know it, you just don't know if it's the right or the wrong approach. And so let's just give you clarity. The more clear that your path is, literally the easier it is for you to make a decision on what you want to do in your goals and in your journey as well. So
thank you, Vince. And I know some of you are new in the group. Can I ask you again, call to action? Take out your phone and take a picture of the QR code and book a call with Vince, with a strategy coach right now. Okay. I know that it's probably the time people are, thank you for taking pictures and take action, because really that's why we were here. And we want to make the journey more clear to you. So every step of the way, you know what you need to do. So thank you for taking pictures. I see people are taking action right here. I'd love to see you in a live setting. So this is basically your first step to learn a little bit about who we are, TYT, and also how we can help you along your journey. And if you're looking to get into a new market and meet us in person, Vince and some of our team members will be there at Trust Your Talent. So the workshop will be November 8th to the 10th in Edmonton. I know Savon and maybe Christina. Mike, you'll be there? Oh, Christina, you're not making it this time? Savon, well, you'll be there. Are you going to be at the field trip? So that's the same time. So you'll be in Edmonton and meet the people. So if you're going to Edmonton on November 8th to the 10th, you'll see Savon. Mike, you'll be there, right?
I think the students will, yeah, you're going to a field trip, I think, Mike, right?
I think so, yeah.
So just for everybody else, there's two things happening. There's a field trip and there's a workshop. So the field trip is where we take a group of our students, like boots on the ground. We go through properties, go through deals, talk to power team members, and we're actually making live offers as a group, as individuals. So like real deals happening live as we're there. However, unfortunately, the workshop is also at the same time, so I'll be at the workshop. So if you want to come see my pretty face, we're going to be diving deep into the knowledge aspect of it, the theory and the contents of it. And for anybody that's, relatively new, it's to help you really set down that foundation, help you set up a roadmap, and if anything, give you that clarity so you know exactly what you need to do on your first step to get your journey for investing started.
So you can kind of see the roadmap we're laying out for you. So for example, Savon and Mike, they're existing students. So you will meet up in the morning in the same hotel. So you might see each other, shake hands, and some of you will go on like field trips. Some of you will go with Vince in the workshop. Regardless, even in the workshop, you're going to work on a few cases and simulate what it is really like to be an investor. For the time we have today, an hour and a half, we're going to go through questions you're going to ask your power team members. At the same time, you might want to learn how to lay out different strategies. So regardless of what strategy you're going to focus on, I know you're going to need power team members along the way. And before we get started, one more thing I do want to mention is that, hey, for some of you, this might be a review. And for some people who are still new to the community, I know this is not your first time in a webinar setting with me. Regardless, we're here to support you. If you want to come again in the webinar, there's another one on October 23rd. And if you're existing students, like we said, share the wealth. So bring somebody new to the community and we'll go through the same process like you did and learn about who we are, go through the workshop, and then go through the process of making real offers, getting your boots on the ground and see how you make offers and go through inspections, talk to realtors, etc. Anything to add, Vince?
No, it's going to be very comprehensive and very hands-on for the field trip. And same with the workshop. It's going to get very deep into the conversations and figure out where you are so we can get you set up on your GPS.
Yeah. So now you're going to learn a little bit more, even more about Vince Lee. The stage is yours, Vince.
All right. Much appreciated. And lots of familiar faces in here. Louis, Savon, Mike, Suzanne. I've seen you guys. I mean, Christina. Great to see you. And Joshua, too. Nice to see you. Even noticed you were here. And yeah, so my name is Vince Lee, and I am a multi-strategy, multi-province seasoned investor. I invest right across Canada. I would like to say that I'm a world traveler as well, and I love seeing every corner of the earth. And my daughter's been to about 4 continents already, being at 2 years old. Now, I wasn't always a real estate investor. I grew up from a little town of North Sydney, Nova Scotia. It's this little tiny island that I grew up in Cape Breton. And yeah, most of the people I knew there, there's no real future there. Most people that I knew grew up and then decided to move or even start working in New Brunswick, or it's not New Brunswick, Alberta, for the oil. And so they work 3 months on and 1 month off, and that's kind of their life nowadays. And I decided to take a different route. I moved out into Ontario. I started my life as an adult there, went to school, graduated, and started my dream job. Like most of us, like, oh, we got our life together. We're an adult now, and you start working, and then 1 year goes by, 2 years go by, 4 years, 10 years go by, and you're realizing, what am I working towards? It's been like 5, 10, 15 years, and I'm still at the same spot, maybe a little stuck, maybe a little confused because society has told you this is the path that you should be taking. And then you work until you're about 65, but then you're looking out the window wondering, wow, how come everybody else is out there enjoying life and enjoying the holidays and doing things on weekdays while you're still just working and working and working. You're working so hard and just not getting by. So that was me. And one day I was working and just I basically hit rock bottom because it wasn't what I wanted to do. And long story short, I broke down in the middle of my clinic. I was a kinesiologist, by the way. I studied 7 years of school just to get there, getting paid $20 an hour in the most expensive city of Toronto, not getting by. And that was why I hit rock bottom, because as much as I saved, as hard as I worked, I just didn't get ahead in life. And so I was like really depressed, and I didn't know who to talk to, who to reach out to. And one day just everything fell around me. And that was when I did take accountability, took responsibility, because nobody's going to be there to save you until you decide to want to save yourself. And at that moment, when you make that decision where you want to make a difference for yourself, at that very moment is when you start to seek for solutions and seek for help. And then at that moment is when people would actually want to help you. And until that happens, you just keep kind of go on with your life, and you just kind of numb the pain, drink it away or whatnot. But that was the turning point for me at 26 when I made that realization. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't just continue just working my life away and not get ahead. And I want it more for myself. I want it more for my future. And I wanted to start a family. I wanted to be happy. And so I stumbled on financial freedom and passive income and real estate investing. And I met all these amazing people. Actually broke with some of the people that I met early on in my journey as well, along with Tim and Ray, who's the founder of Trust Your Talent. So grateful for them to have them in my life. And just one thing led to the next. And it really just impacted me because I started making more decisions for myself, and I knew I had that power to change my life. I took back the power. I took back my responsibility and not just blame the government, blame my job or the boss or whoever was in my life. Or actually, there was a time I used to blame my parents for why we were poor. But until I took that responsibility, I had empowered myself to be able to make those decisions to change my life. And so at 26, around 2018, after my big breakdown, I started looking into real estate investing. And then I did find my mentor, Ray, who's at that bottom corner there where me and my partner are standing beside him. And he's wearing that blue shirt with a microphone. That's Ray. And he just opened our eyes and gave us a different outlook on life, on the world, on what's possible, and gave us hope and gave us possibilities. And in about 7 months of starting real estate investing and getting the deals done, by the way, not using any of my own money. I had to use other people's money because I only had about $2,000 in my bank account. Used other people's money, but I had the confidence to structure deals. I had the confidence to raise the capital I needed from my investors, from my power team, and put these deals together. And one thing led to the next. In 7 months, I actually ended up quitting my job. I was financially independent, had just enough to live life, but not enough to be, living like luxurious. But at that point, I knew that confidence was there for me to do my next deal and my next deal and my next deal. I continued to scale and grow. And yeah, fast forward to today, I'm just living life and have my little one and just doing what I want to do. And yeah, it's just been a dream come true. And sometimes it feels so surreal because we've been traveling the world, and I think Brooke and I we're going to Hawaii next. So that's another place that never been there before, but hey, why not? It's a beautiful place. Heard great things about it. So we're all going to Hawaii together as like a family almost. And yeah, just enjoy life. Because we always say too, if money can solve your problems, you don't have a real problem, you have a money problem. And the real things in life cannot be solved with money. Real problems in life cannot be solved with money. And so that's where I'm at today. So I'll bring it back to you, to you, Brooke.
Thank you, Vince. And I've met Vince in his 20s. He's since been matured and become a very seasoned investor, and now sharing the wealth, sharing the knowledge. There's so many things that he just talked about I want to touch upon as well. One thing is, when a student is ready, the teacher will be there. So that's the same thing with my mentor Tim. So Tim and I are partners, and ever since we met them, I think our world is very different. Even though we're talking about power team, you're thinking, okay, that's my property manager, that's my realtor. Really, our mentors are also our power team members. So it's your strategy coach. So as mentors, we're also there to check a blind spot. It's funny, everybody started at a different point. And when we're looking back, the pain point that we had at one time in life was actually what's kicking our rear in the back, reminding us of what we need to do. So unlike Vince, he was young and energetic. I was already middle-aged and thinking about retirement. And when I started working after staying at home with my kids for 10 years, I realized that, hey, we didn't save any money. We're actually paying more tax. We have a lot less time because we had 2 kids going to soccer, swimming, dancing, ballet, anything you can think of. And we didn't have extra savings either. At that point, I was thinking I really had to do something about it. We live in a 1,200 square foot semi-detached house, and we always wanted to move to a bigger home. So that was my starting point, and I was ready for it. I really didn't think I had much time to waste or wait. And like Vince, we have some mortgageability. If you happen to be in the big city, it doesn't seem to be enough. It never seemed to be enough. And even though we said, hey, depending on where you are, your goal, your strategy, your market, your property. However, I think you do want to have the choice of being wherever you want to be. So the market might not be where you want to be. Regardless, you should have the financial means to be wherever you want to be. Whether that's traveling to somewhere you've never been to or having the time to choose to do that. So when I started, my goal was just to build our own home, which means that we need our own mortgageability, which means that I might have to look for joint venture partners. Then I realized that, hey, I really have to work really hard to start running with what I learned and then build our own home. So we look at everything as something that's going to realize towards our financial goal. So for example, when I started, I focused on lease option. Every joint lease option, joint venture, basically if you share the wealth, then I can get probably say 500 to 800 of cash flow, meaning that, hey, I can pay for additional 100,000 of mortgage. So I look at it as a way of working towards my goal. Because of that, I talked to a lot of people and formed joint venture partnerships. And that's why we have to think outside the box. Like Vince said, if it's a problem that money can solve, then it's not really a problem. So if fund is what you need, then look to raise funds. If you need mortgageability, look for joint venture partners who is also looking to increase their wealth at the same time. So for example, it depends on where you are in your life. You might have different goals. So Vince and I look at what we learned. If you're financially free, what do you really want to do? And really, if money is not an issue, what do you want to do? That's usually how we guide students to think big and really think about what your goals are. So I wrote the book thinking, hey, if I need a resume and just internalize what I want to share with the world, that's one way of doing it. And it's like my resume, just hand it out. Because the community is so supportive, it was sold out at one point. So if you want to write a book, let's talk about how to get you to the bestseller. And another thing is everything you do, find a purpose for yourself and what is in it for yourself and win-win-win for everybody else. So if you're thinking of building a power team, what's in it for them as well? What's in it for you? So I'll give you an example. For me to write a book, and I think for me is to understand how to speak to people, how to communicate with people. That's self-development. For other people, it's not an inexpensive book, and I'm willing to give it away for free if this is helping you along the journey. So if you're at the point where you do want to give, and that's where we are. We love the community. And as you can see, a lot of people, even though they're already enrolled, are here to support us. And Tim and Ray in the center, they really helped us along the way. So same thing, we follow the path as where you are today. So they are our mentors, and we're here and to pass it down to the next generation and help the next generation of investors, regardless of how old you are, we're here to help you. So Tim and Ray are much younger than me, and yet I look up to them because they're there to show us as an example. If you have kids, I think that's why you're here too, to show as an example to the next generation, whatever it means to you to build a legacy. And if you don't have kids, perhaps it's a charity you want to give to once you're financially free. And if we're not making a difference in your life today, reach out to us, because if you're not making a difference in other people's life, you shouldn't be in the business. And that's how we look at it as well. That's why we aim to help you reach your financial goal in 2 to 5 years. So financial independence and get you out of the rat race in 2 to 5 years. Vince?
Yeah, I mean, it's financial independence. It seems like a pipe dream, like it was for me when I first started looking into it. Like, is this actually something that someone could achieve? It was not a word or vocabulary in my dictionary. It just felt too good to be true. But I think everybody deserves at least a chance, an opportunity to taste it once. And it is just life changing, because once you actually reach financial independence, you literally are like the 1% of the 99% of the world, while everybody's working and, you know, working hard at their job and doing their thing. And by the way, I'm not saying to quit your job. If you truly enjoy your job, great, stay at it and continue doing what you're doing. But having the options and the opportunities to choose what you want to do, that's a whole different thing. And I think everybody deserves at least that one moment of opportunity to try it and taste it and feel it. Because once you're there and you don't have to work for money anymore, you got to realize, what more can you be doing with your time? How much more impact or fulfillment could you create around yourselves? And you're not working at a job, just kind of doing it day in and day out, and you're actually out there maybe making a bigger impact in other people's lives, whether that's your family, your friends, or maybe it's a charity like Brooke said, because then you could actually free up your own time to do more, like to do actual real good for the world. But if you're at your job and you're just slaving away, you can't really do that, because your time is, it's tied up. You're one person at one place at a time. So just wanted to point that out there. So yeah.
Thank you, Vince, for sharing that. So if this is where you are, just thinking about it, how does it translate to the next step you're going to take? So we kept focusing on, hey, what you can do, what would you be doing if money is really not an issue? Again, it really starts from you and what you're thinking about achieving. Regardless of where you are in life, like Vince said, if it's something you're passionate about. So for us, we're spending time here with you, even though we say leverage other people's time. So I'm happy that you're leveraging our time. And at the same time, how do you want to contribute to the world? It all starts from you. What it translates to is, hey, what kind of strategies you want to focus on? Start from you. And if you're focusing on portfolio income, focusing on earned income, what are the people that you want to put on your power team to help you fill that bucket? So in terms of translating to what it means to you, again, I always talk about win-win. I believe that especially when it comes to money, comes to wealth, you can definitely share it and find a way to structure it, to share it in a way that everybody could benefit from it. So if you're looking to cash flow, like Vince and I said, we started with lease option. For me, I was just thinking about finding a way to replace my income. I just want to see that what I learned is going to work. And of course, helping the tenants is definitely resonating with me a lot. And not being handy myself, that's one of another reason why I love the strategy. And when it comes to fix and flip, and I don't think anybody mentioned contractors, or I didn't put it out in the first slide. However, depending on your strategy, some people are definitely an important part of your real estate journey on your power team. Okay, Vince, anything to add? And I know for some people, this is a review. It starts from you and it translates to property at the very end. So again, if it's acronym that you've never seen before, strategy, market, and then property. Strategy, market, property. Don't buy property first and trying to fix it, trying to translate it to what you really want in life.
Well,
So
most people do it backwards, and for the ladies, you'll see it's SMP is the right way of doing it. If you're doing it backward, it's called PMS. Easy way to remember it. Not gonna say much more, and I'll leave it there. Diana, I see you laughing.
So you'll always remember it. You'll always remember the fun you had and what it translates to you. A lot of the times when we say money, if it's a problem money can solve, it's really not a big problem. And I've seen a lot of people buying properties first, aiming to make a profit. Again, we're not speculators. We're here to be educated investors. So if you haven't heard this before, write it down. Speculation leads to liquidation. Thank you for writing it down. And I've seen pen and paper, speculations lead to liquidation because a lot of people purchase a property first, thinking that the market will carry it upwards. I can be honest with you. Yes, that happened to me before because I've been living in Toronto forever. I've seen the property value went up and I thought, oh, wow, I must be a good investor. And the good thing is I realized that even though I didn't know anything about real estate, and if this is the only thing, the only wealth I had because of appreciation, I should definitely learn about it.
I
Vince?
think people get into that mistake of like getting lucky, so they think that it's like it'll always be like that. But if you look at it in an upward market, when the market's going up, you can make all like, by the way, that is the best time for you to make mistakes because as the market's going up, even though you make big mistakes, the value of the property goes up and it covers all the mistakes that you've made. Best time to learn, but the mistake that people make is that they think that they're doing everything right, and so they must be doing something right if they're making money. But the problem is when the market starts to go down, as you know, the market never stays stagnant straight through. When the market goes down, that's when people are caught with their pants down. And at that point, you can't make mistakes. And then the people that were getting lucky, that's when they go for liquidation. So just be aware of that. And this is why we surround ourselves with the right people. And not to say that your power team would be wrong about what they do. Like realtors, for example, a big part of what they do is to sell you a home. They understand the market. They from their perspective, they may see it as a great opportunity because the market is going up. However, they're coming from their perspective, and in a way, it is speculation if you're just banking on appreciation. So.
And another thing Vince mentioned is speculation and how lucky can you constantly get. We're talking about building a sustainable real estate business. If you're lucky in the market remember, it's always a cycle. If you happen to be lucky in the market for 5 years, is it always going to be the case? And we always talk about condos. At the same time, I've also seen a lot of people currently getting a pre-construction condo. Again, we're about solving problems. We're about sustainability. We're about taking control. If you're speculating, you're really not taking control. That's the first thing. Secondly, can you consistently grow your business? Thirdly, if you're not able to make a profit or learn when the market goes up, down, sideways, are you really a seasoned and educated investor? So one thing I learned from a lot of celebrities, by the way, this is from George Clooney. He says, you don't learn anything from success. So a lot of people failed a lot of times. That's how we do it too. You failed a lot of times. However, every step of the way, you're learning something. So we want you to also build upon our experience as well. Why do we build upon, say, Tim Murray or people that came before us? Is really that, hey, they've made the mistakes. We'll build upon their experiences as well. So you think, hey, there's so much we can do. one of the most common thing I've heard from students is that I feel like Brooke or Vince, I'm drinking from hoses when I'm learning about real estate and so many different strategies. Every advanced class you see here is at least 15 to 18 hours plus tutorials. Plus, you have to put in the time, invest in your time for mentorship, for homework. And even though it looks like a lot, really, once you work with a strategy coach and start to focus, the path will get a lot easier. So, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you climb up the tower? One step at a time. And because we're talking about being a seasoned investor, regardless of which way the market is going, when you're making money in the buy, so you're really taking profit when you exit. That's why we want you to learn about different strategies. We would say 3x3. When I started learning 2x2, you might be okay. However, the market is very volatile in a lot of times. So remember to focus when you get started, and then 3x3 to always think about 3 different exit strategies. And as an investors, we talked about different strategies at the same time. You have to learn to communicate with people. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is really about communicating with your power team. Build that muscle to build your team, to raise funds. And also business fundamentals, and I'm partial because I think creative financing is so important that it goes across all different strategies. And once you become the bank, you can really reach your financial freedom goal a lot quicker. And I've also seen students, and Vince, you can be a testimonial of that as well. Some people are thinking about investing for 10 years, and then with Trust Your Talent, they really accelerated their path. Again, we mentioned 2 to 5 years. Anybody have seen people investing for 10 years, 20 years, and not reaching their goals? I have. Okay. So especially those of us who are a little bit more experienced in life, you've probably seen that a lot, and even our parents' generation as well. And that's when they're sitting and waiting for the property value to go up. So Vince and I will have a discussion. I already put it all out there that, hey, you have to have quite a few realtors on your power team. So Vince, what are the first 2 questions? I mean, we listed a lot here that you would ask a realtor when you start to build your team.
For me, a big one would it depends as if I'm looking to buy a property or if I'm looking to sell a property, because they're very different. If you're buying a property versus if you're selling, there's 2 different criteria I look for. But generally, I want to make sure that they're also investor focused. Just because, like, if they do work with investors, they at least have a bit of background. They understand what we're looking for and how we are actually aiming for, because we're not buying it as a primary resident for ourselves. So as they're from an investor standpoint, it's more of a business that we're thinking of, and of course to make money. But the thing is too, what's important for you guys to understand is when you're looking for investors, not all, I'm sorry, realtors, not all realtors are made the same. And actually, I'll ask you guys the question, how does the realtor first get paid? That's probably one of the big important questions. Does anybody just want to unmute themselves? Just how do realtors get paid? And if nobody answers, I will volunteer you.
I know you guys want to speak because I see a lot of people looking for that unmute button. Savon and
Commission.
Stephen, go ahead. Oh, Joshua, go
Commission.
ahead first. Joshua, I'm
Okay,
sorry. Go ahead.
commission. Okay, so
Commission.
commission, right? All right. So if they're getting paid by commission, their goal is to either help you buy or sell that home. So there's a motivation for that realtor to either help you buy or sell that home. Now, the thing is, if you're one off and they don't really know you from a hole in the wall, well, they just want your business. You're in and out. That's it. They could tell you all the great things about that property, how it's going to make you money, but if you don't know any better, then it's kind of on your loss, because they're doing their job as a realtor to help you buy or sell that property. And so for me, I really want to make sure that they are more investor focused. They understand from the perspective of an investor, as well as in a way I want to ask them if they themselves are also investors, because then I can now qualify them based on their own experience, what they know, what they aim for as an investor, And then that way I can align with them and say, hey, great, these are great criteria that you have. It's similar to what I'm looking for as well. And so now I'm not just buying for the sake of buying, I'm buying it based on the numbers, based on the results I'm going to get from purchasing this property. I'm not just speculating on appreciation. And so those are some of the big things that I would look for right off the bat with any realtor that I work with across the board.
Thank you, Vince. And I know a lot of us work with several power team members. So by a show of hand, you do have more than one realtors on your power team.
Yeah.
So realtor is one of the power team members. You're going to have multiples, especially.
Do we have realtors in the room though? By the way, any realtors in the room? Just before we keep going, Brooke. Yeah, you can correct us if you're a realtor as well.
Katie and Scott, you guys are realtors.
No, just Kate is, not me.
Oh yeah. So is Katie around?
No, she's busy at the moment.
No worries, no worries.
Now, the other thing too is like, I know a lot of people that want to get into real estate investing, the first thought that comes to mind is I must become a realtor first and learn the ins and out of being a realtor, and that's gonna translate to me becoming an investor. Not always the case. Yes, you might get some inside scoop or some tools of it. However, being an investor means that you leverage their experience, especially because as an investor, remember SMP. So Brooke, as Brooke talked about, strategy, market, and then property. Based on our strategies, the markets will always be different. Even though you might be a realtor in the GTA in Toronto or in Vancouver, that doesn't always translate to if you wanted to buy a property in New Brunswick. And so we leverage the realtors, their specialties in that market to give us the data that we need to make our decisions. If they're a specialist in, let's say, the Waterloo region, we can now ask them questions to help us guide our decisions on the best scenarios for whichever strategies we plan to focus on. They know the market. Maybe they grew up in the market, and so they know all the inside outs of that market better than somebody that's not a local. And that's why we leverage these people in our power team.
And I just want to point one thing out. You see a lot of questions here on screen, and we provide the question list for you. However, like we said, it's a people's business. And I've seen students doing mentorship, taking a picture of this and checking out each question and not really having a conversation. Really, everything we do here, even with Vince and I in the room here, we have a goal. There's a reason why we ask these questions for things like, are you familiar with seller financing? And a lot of times I will ask them, are you a commercial realtor? Or are you a residential realtor? Are you a residential realtor with commercial license as well, etc.? And I found every time I get into a market, and you probably have experience with that as well, if you have spoken to a realtor, usually they have an area they're really, really familiar with. So ask them questions about power team because they might have other referrals in that particular market. I even know realtors, they're only familiar with, say, a few blocks. That's their block, this school district, that is it. That is why sometimes we have several realtors on our team. So I'm looking at the questions saying, how long have you been a realtor for? Just start a conversation. Don't jump from one to another. You're starting a conversation while they're talking about it. All of a sudden you're talking about, do you know any GCs that you can refer me to? Do you know any mortgage brokers you can refer me to? So really have a conversation and look at each question and see if that applies to you. Things like, hey, do you work with investors yourself? A lot of the times, realtors are thinking most people can afford one property, and that's it. So they're thinking this is one transaction and done. Imagine if it's transactional versus relationship based. How would you treat each other differently? Okay, so look at each question and think about how you would tailor it during the conversation, and why are you asking that question? Everything we put here, there's a reason that we're asking that. Are you a real estate investor yourself? By the way, sometimes what they consider as property collectors versus realtors as real estate investors, as how we define it at Trust Your Talent, is very different. Be open. At the same time, you have to do your due diligence. What does it really mean? If somebody collected 5 properties over the span of 20 years versus people who are really looking at cash flow, thinking about the purpose of buying a property. Anybody else? Any questions you would add that we did not include here? Or is there any particular questions here you always ask and you found that you get interesting answers here too? So I'm gonna start to volunteer people. Louis, unmute yourself. Pick a question and tell me you've asked that question and what's your purpose of asking that question. I'll spend more time on Realtor, by the way. And for other Tower team members, you might be thinking you might not use it depending on your strategy. However, everybody will come across a Realtor you want to work with. Louis.
I asked the question, do you work with real estate investor all the time? Almost in every single conversation, because I know what kind of experience they have. And if they understand some of the strategy we're looking at, and because as an educated investor, we're more stringy with the numbers, and chances are they will say, hey, this is a good deal, but then we turn around, they say no, and they get pissed off. So having that experience is very important. But I do find most of them saying yes and not doing it because they just want a business. So you have to dig deeper. Like a lot of these are yes or no questions, and you just have to turn it into open-ended questions and make it more worthwhile and save yourself some headaches afterward.
Suzanne, I know you've worked with realtors and even referred people to realtors in your market. What do you consider as a good realtor when you speak to them, or the way we react? Give us an example.
Someone who's very open-minded, because I've found in the past that if you start asking questions about creative financing with them, some of them, if they don't understand it, they'll say, oh, that's illegal, or you shouldn't be doing that, or you're not allowed doing that, or so it really is important that they understand investing and the different strategies involved.
Thank you, Suzanne.
I like those questions.
Thank you. So you brought up a very good point. Once you talk about creative financing or seller financing available, they might think, hey, is that really doable? Is that even legal? Is it ethical? However, reach out to a mortgage broker who's doing this days in and day out, and they really know what's going on in the market. So again, we always say, how long have you been a mortgage broker for? Or how do you work with real estate investors? So some of the questions you see might be repetitive, and it could be an icebreaker. So you start the conversation and have a feel if they're really investor focused, and if they're not just transactional, if you can really build a relationship with them. Okay, Vince, anything to add?
Well, same question here. Does anybody know how a mortgage broker makes money? The reason I ask these questions is because we need to understand their motivation and what's in it for them. And as investors, and I say this all the time, it's like a Lego piece. We're the Lego that has to be able to fit in. And if we're coming in from the perspective of what's in it for them, majority of people around you'll know that they're always thinking about what's in it for me, what's in it for me. And we're always thinking what's in it for them, what's in it for them. And we become that Lego piece that fits right into that piece. And so for mortgage broker, does anybody know how the mortgage, what's the motivation for the mortgage broker? How do they actually make money? Louis, you unmute it?
Mortgage broker makes fee through, I mean, they make money.
I think they are also commission based, and then it depends on how much, like if say like you borrow like $1 million, then it will be based on $1 million. There is a percentage, and then that's the commission. And then usually it's paid by the borrower.
Okay. Louis, anything to add? Yeah.
Yeah, so those are
Hold on, I don't have it.
those are immediate. for the one I encounter, those good ones, they make money by building a long-term relationship with client, because every 3 years you gotta renew, every 5 years you gotta renew. So that's where the money is, especially when you're working with investors where they need more than just
Sustainable.
pages. Yeah.
Yeah, there's ongoing sustainable business there, and that's the thing. A lot of mortgage broker likes working with investors, especially when there's volume included with that, because they know that there's repeat business along the pipeline for them. And yes, they do get paid based on the loans that they make, and they get a percentage of it. They also do make money off of the fees as well. And so this is understanding that allows us to realize, okay, well, how do we ensure, because their time is valuable too. They don't want to be wasting time just on a phone call with you for 3 hours and they don't make anything out of it. And they got to be like making sure that, hey, are we going to be able to get them the business so that they can, ultimately put food on the table for their family as well. And knowing that you're a serious investor, you do have multiple deals that you're working on consistently throughout multiple years, they know that you will be able to generate that funnel for them just from one person or even multiple people that's in your network along the way. And so the big one is always going to ask them if they work with investors, because a lot of them, they tend to work with like just the general public, mom and pops. And knowing that we're investors, letting them know that we're investors, they take us a little bit more serious as well. So, and I like that.
Thank you. And just one more thing I do want to mention is that the lender pays mortgage broker in a lot of cases, actually more and more so. So you really need to work with the mortgage broker thinking about your benefit, because like Vin said, you want somebody who's going to have repeat business. So they wouldn't just go with the lender that's probably going to pay the most commission to them, etc. Because mortgage broker usually work with, if you're finding a mortgage broker who work with investors, they will think about repeat business and think about your overall portfolio and then see how you can scale. There are also mortgage brokers who only work with first-time home buyers. That's what they're familiar with. Pretty straightforward. That's their specialty at the same time. So you really want to know if you're their target audience, basically. So again, what's in it for them? What's in it for everybody? So you can create a win-win. And ask them, what's your overall clientele like? A lot of the time, who is looking for referrals all the time? I'm looking for referrals when I need to get into a market if some other investors are already there. Of course, I go for referrals and go with people I know first. So if you know their clientele are in the network you're in, are investors just like yourself, that's really important. Like I said, sometimes they only work with homeowners, especially first-time homeowners, where they have a very specific market. And also, we talked about value. And a lot of the time, it doesn't seem like a concrete answer. However, if you're the type of person who have abundance mindset, this is not just one deal and done. We're thinking about what's win-win. How could everybody benefit from this? So you can even just have a conversation and tell how do they operate their business. So a lot of the questions I see here is really about how they operate their business. Do they have a goal? What's their goal as a mortgage broker? Because first thing first, when we started the webinar, we asked what your goals are. So same thing. Do they also operate the same way? Looking for a goal, try to reach it, and aim to benefit the clients. Okay. And what type of lending do you facilitate? So whatever is making sense to you in the language you speak, I would just say, do you focus on this particular market? And funny enough, as I expanded, I finally realized that, yes, they could both be commercial mortgage brokers. They could both be residential. And if it's a market they're more familiar with, and if you're in that market, the mortgage broker might have more resources to help you in there. So sometimes you will have multiple mortgage brokers as well. Christina.
So in the last example, the realtor, it's good to have one in every market. What about mortgage brokers? Do you need that too in every market?
Vince, you can answer that first and I can add on.
Yeah, so it depends. So some mortgage brokers, basically the mortgage brokers, they have to be licensed in different markets. So some mortgage brokers may be licensed right across the board. However, at the same time, sometimes when you're in a very small market, that mortgage broker who's quite big and they may have a lot of connections right across Canada, for example, they might not have connections at a very small market, like a small level local side of things. So let's say if you're in like a small town of North Sydney, Nova Scotia, and Cape Breton Island, where I'm from, they might not have a connection there. And being a local, like talking to an actual local person there, they know people specifically in Nova Scotia, in North Sydney. And so it makes the lending, maybe you get better rates or better options to be able to find lending solutions in that kind of example there. So it really depends on kind of what you're looking for and depending on the different markets that you're looking at as well. So and this is why Brooke said it's not a bad idea to have multiple mortgage brokers as well, because one mortgage broker may not have what you're looking for. And brokers basically are brokeraging all the different options that they have available. It's based on all the relationships that they've built over time.
Does that answer your question, Christina? So I'll give you one example where I saw a student looking for a mortgage, and it's not that small a market. But the first mortgage broker they approached, the mortgage broker said, it's a smaller market. I can only provide 65% loan to value, meaning you have to come with 35% of down payment. However, they later approached another mortgage broker who's more familiar with that market, and they easily got an 80% loan to value. So remember, they are brokers, meaning they bridge the lenders and the borrower. So depending on their lender resources, the lenders might be specializing in different things. Okay, so that's why it's okay for you to have several. And some mortgage brokers can only do residential, some focus on commercial, for example. And that's a very different game. And again, you're not just going to have one power team member for that particular category. Anybody who is starting and looking to build your corporation and finding a corporate lawyer right now. Okay. Are they the same as lawyers that's facilitating the closing of a real estate deal? Night and day. Some do both. However, it's a very different way of set. It's a very different business, I would say. Sometimes the lawyer working with a lot of real estate investor will start to help you facilitate real estate transactions or even estate planning. So perhaps you
kind of like
litigation too. Yeah.
It's kind of like no different than if you're looking for a contractor and maybe a contractor focuses on drywalling and you wouldn't hire them to do your roof because they have no clue how to do the roof. Or maybe you need a plumber, like a contractor who does plumbing and he only does plumbing issues. But then you're like, oh, I need my wall fixed. Like, oh, I think I could do it. I kind of studied a little bit of it, but not really. And then you get him to fix your toilet for you. It may not be the best idea. He might be able to do it. However, to the standard that you need, maybe not the best idea. And same thing goes for the lawyers.
And I get that there's a lot of questions here. You can take a picture of the screen or reach out to us and get the slides. So at least have 3 lawyers on your Rolodex. So your corporate lawyer, that's number 1. Real estate closing lawyers, you need several because you're going to invest in different markets. So Ontario lawyers will not perhaps close in BC, for example. So number 2, you need real estate closing lawyer. Number 3, have a litigation lawyer. I hope, knock on wood, you don't need to use it. However, it's good to have their contacts in case you need to use them. If you don't have a litigation lawyer yet on your contact list, at least have a paralegal. You must have a paralegal. Paralegal makes a huge difference too, because they might be experienced. And I've gone through different cases with paralegals, again, who are really good with people, who have the connections as well. Okay, so 3 lawyers, write it down, real estate closing lawyers. corporate lawyers and litigation lawyer. At least have 3. At least
I just
have
want to
3.
point out that lawyers are just normal people as well. So don't feel like intimidated because they're lawyers, because that was me. I was like terrified, like, oh, it's a lawyer. I'm thinking of suits and these big guys, big poncho people with like these expensive suits. They're just normal people. Yeah. They're here to help facilitate and make sure what you're doing is legal so that you're protected.
And Vince, it's funny you mentioned lawyers. When I was starting, even realtors or mortgage broker, I found it intimidating to see any of them because they work with investors. So when I'm new, I'm thinking, I don't have much on my portfolio. They all seem intimidating. Are they really going to work with me? However, remember, you're looking for somebody who is also looking out for you. They're also looking out for a win-win to bring value to you. So don't feel that way. And also, that's why we're here. And that's why perhaps you go in with your mentor. We hold your hand and throughout the process. And this is how I usually do it, just like here. Ask all the questions. If you miss one question or two, I'm going to be there to remind you. More like partners and more like people who's checking your blind spots for you. And that's exactly what the power teams are there for. If you can't go through all the law books and you don't need them, why are they there to help you? So I get that there's a lot of technologies nowadays and you're thinking, I can find the terms and just put it in my contracts. However, speak to people who have real life experiences. Why do you put in the terms in there? So like everything we do, what's the purpose? Why do you want to set up a 3-tier? Actually, I was talking to a student today. The lawyer said you should set up 3 corporations at the lowest tier instead of 2, etc. So they might not tell you the same thing. Ask them what's the purpose of doing it? How is it going to protect you?
Well, this is the thing, Brooke, is that a lot of people, if you just directly went to a lawyer without knowing what you're looking for, they'll tell you exactly what they think and what they feel is right for you, not exactly knowing what you need and what maybe you're looking for based on your financial situation, based on your current life circumstances, based on even the resources that you have access to as well. Lawyers are basically coming from their perspective of what's right for them, and they're not wrong. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And the thing is, having a mentor in your corner, helping you guide your thought process, guiding you through what your goals are, what your thoughts are on your future plans and what you're looking to do is basically going to help you narrow down on exactly what you need to do and the questions that you'll have to ask your lawyer along with your accountant to decide on how to actually structure your 3-tier corporation. It's not just set it up and there you go. It's an actually serious process. And I'm not trying to scare you guys, but the other thing too is just to let you know that the lawyers do charge per minute. And so the quality of questions right off the bat is going to be very important for you. Because if you're just asking a lot of random questions that isn't really helping you, then you're going to be spending a lot of money on the lawyer. Yeah, Lewis.
Questions. One is, how many litigation lawyers do you need? Do you need one in each province or each cities? And second, like, do you have different set of questions for different type of lawyer? Because I imagine what I'm looking for from a residential lawyer is going to be very, very different to litigation lawyer, right? Like, do you have sample you can share in that sense?
That's a very, very good question, Lewis. So I'll answer the first part of your question first. So for litigation lawyers, yes, it's better to have people who are familiar with Ontario situation. For example, some people who is familiar with New Brunswick situation, and especially paralegals, also are they familiar with what's going on in the market? So yes, sometimes you do need to have several. It's not gonna be like a long list. Once you get into that market, you'll see that it's gonna make sense. I just saw the chat. So one more thing I do want to add is if you have kids, sure. So make sure you also look into estate planning too. A lawyer that could help you with estate planning. So you can combine that with insurance, etc. However, to get yourself started, speak to somebody, and perhaps you already have a will. So sometimes the lawyer that help you with estate planning or corporate lawyer, how to structure the whole thing, it's all related. Because sometimes you structure with a trust on top, and then you have to see how your corporation is laid out as well. And also, I also put in a question as to, hey, even for closing lawyers, I've had lawyers saying no if it's a joint venture situation. They're just not comfortable with it. And I had one joint venture partner looking for a lawyer himself at first. Then he said, I've talked to so many lawyers and I talk about the joint venture situation with you. None of them know how to do this or are familiar with it. However, I'm pretty sure if you find one that knows how to go through the process, it's really not that complicated. Because sometimes people will tell you no just because they don't know. And I also had a lawyer I worked with for a very long time. And then I told him, I'm starting to invest. I want to look into lease option and rent to own. The tree name is rent to own. And I talked to him. He said, I always say no to people getting into rent to own because they just randomly set up a purchase price. And that's really not the case because it's just because he's not familiar with it. So he's saying no to whoever, whenever you bring a lease option contract to him, he will advise against it. And by the way, if you're in this room today, you want to learn something that's not done every single day. Otherwise, everybody will be doing it. And there's no problem to solve. You're not going to make a profit. So let's be honest. Okay. We can say a lot about lawyers and just about also different strategies you're going to focus on. So regardless of what strategies you plan to focus to start, you will need lawyers. So even though I mentioned 3, but if you have kids, you're already thinking about estate planning, put in another one. Put in a estate lawyer on your list too. Okay. Anything else? I think we had a really good discussion right here. So I love that. Also, some lawyers are not even familiar with with closing without a realtor. They only know when it's not a private sale. So again, you really need to start to build your power team. And yes, it's out there. People are closing properties with joint venture, shareholder agreements, assignments, etc. And you just have to make sure you have the right power team, how to set the contracts. By the way, and also that's why you're here. I can tell you all the contracts and all the documents we set up for you. If you draft it from scratch, easily $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 just for a joint venture agreement. So what I always suggest students to do is start with a template, put the information in. You can just modify from it. Then imagine the lawyer hours you're going to save versus starting from scratch.
That was the big shocker for me when I started, because when I started taking my advanced strategy class, for all the students in the room here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you take lease option or you take multi-unit, we provide you the templates that's been passed down from generations. And just that alone, that piece of paper or document alone is like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth being passed down from those generations, from mentor to mentee. If you went to sit in an office with a lawyer to draft that up, like easily $5,000 to $10,000 right there, just from those contracts. And we like give that as templates to our students.
And I get that this is the webinar, your starting point. So it looks like, hey, we talked about lease option, multifamily, and assignment, etc. So in the workshop, we will go through all the different strategies. Remember, you're here with us an hour and a half to 2 hours. You're going to be in the room for 3 straight days to really dig deep into different strategies. And even that's the starting point for you to explore different strategies and what's out there. I put property manager last because sometimes, hey, really, real estate is not just about buildings and fixing toilets. Sometimes you probably don't even need a property manager when you're focusing on wholesale, assignment, and even lease option. It depends. I have property managers, and some of my lease option properties. Regardless, this is somebody you want to learn how to speak to, especially you're thinking about long-term holds. And when you're looking at bigger buildings, make sure the property is taken care of so you don't get sued when somebody slip and fall and you didn't clean the snow in the front, etc., etc. So sometimes your property managers are also the ones that's going to filter your tenants for you. There's so many things and so many questions you should ask. I'm just giving you an example as to why we ask that question, because who is in the real estate to fix toilets and be on the call 24/7? Nobody. Come on, nobody raise your hand at this point. Exactly, because you're going to leverage your power team. And even during the time you start to initiate a conversation with your property manager, you can kind of tell how honest they are, how they communicate. So even though not everybody will need a property manager, perhaps, you probably notice there are so many questions when it comes to property manager. Mike Knott.
Why do you need a property manager for your lease options?
Because Vince and I invest anywhere in the country. It's not in your backyard.
And well, for lease options specifically, so Brooke actually said perhaps like maybe you need it or maybe you don't. Some of the lease options, they're relatively like hands-free. However, sometimes like if it's like within a neighborhood, for example, like maybe it's in Toronto and it's right down the street from Brooke, I might just pay Brooke like $100 to just walk through it. Not really a property manager, but just to check in on the property. But you could potentially even maybe structure something like that with a property manager if you have a portfolio in that area. Generally with lease option, they're relatively hands-free just because the tenants are taking care of the property and it's self-maintained. And this is one of the the beautiful things with lease option is that tenants treat the home as if it was their own, and they're more mature and they're actually treating the property like if there's any problems or maybe you want to do renovations, they're already invested to doing it themselves and just coming up with obviously getting approval from you first.
Thank you, Vince. And Mike, that's actually a fantastic question. I only use it if I need to. For example, personally, I like to check if the fire alarm is still working, the smoke detector. So only once in a while, especially now you have the network. I see Vince from Edmonton. I see yourself, Calgary. I see Sylvan in BC. So I'm pretty sure with the network, you just need somebody to drop by. Even if I don't have a property manager, I'll say, Vince, do you have a property manager that can drop by and help me take a look?
Just like a quick thing, like I think what was it like in like 4 years ago, I think during COVID, like just after COVID, myself, I was actually in New Brunswick and I was with a few other friends of mine who's also students at TYT. And so we decided to do a road trip to Nova Scotia towards Halifax. And Brandy, who's also another student, she has a rent to own in that area who she just closed the deal on. And tenants were just moving in. And so she's like, hey, can you possibly just go to like, a store and go to Winners and just buy some like home gifts and whatnot as like a little gift basket, tie it up in a bow tie and give it to them and take a picture with them as well and just say you're my associates. And it's really for them like a home like a home warming welcome gift to their property. Little things like that. And when you have that network around you, it's quite easy because you just have that relationship already there. And it's a nice feeling for both ends as well.
Thank you, Vince. Ashley brought a very good point. I always mention that, even though we're talking about Power Team. I'm surprised I haven't mentioned it. Just even a gift card every year, if the tenant buyer or if the property manager, if the on-site property manager, caretaker are doing a great job that year, we give them Christmas gifts and you don't even have to be there. It's nice when Vincent can actually show up and bring them a gift. If not, make sure you at least give them a gift card, send them a Christmas card. And it's so convenient these days. You can even digitally send a gift card by email. So that goes a very long way as well. Even though it's not a question to ask, it's really about building relationships. Okay. And perhaps you're receiving presents from your realtor, from your lawyers every year. Anybody receive gifts from your lawyers or even mortgage broker, right? So same thing, you reciprocate. And your tenants, they're your clients. And your joint venture partners, they're your clients. They help you build your empire. So little things like that, it really goes a long way. Or put a gift basket in the unit the moment they move in. And accountant is the next important one. This is the one that you really need their specialties in the subject. So I'm not going to say I know exactly how to answer questions, how you're going to ask them the question. A lot of the times we don't know what we don't know. That's why it's so important to have an accountant that knows and are familiar with working with real estate investors as well. We talk about corporate structure when we talk about how to speak to a lawyer. At the same time, they might give you different answers, and they're both right. So as an investor, like I said, you leverage their strength, their wisdom, their experience. Ultimately, you have to make the decision, and you have to make an informed decision. That's why you gather your power team to get informed decisions. I'll give you an example where your accountant, their goal is to make sure you keep more money in your pocket. That's exactly what they do. Your lawyers are there to protect you. So I mentioned sometimes lawyers will say, hey, build up several corporations. However, that's going to protect you and it's going to also cost you a lot. What's your decision? Does it make sense? How much protection are you comfortable with? So these are all the questions you're going to ask at the same time. Make an informed decision. Because remember in the very beginning, I mentioned that even if you're none of the above, you're not the accountant, you're not the lawyer. At the same time, you're the one who's going to lead your team and who's going to care about your portfolio more than anybody else. Vince, anything to add?
Not so much. I think you covered a lot there.
Mike?
With regards to accounting, and then in one of them you said one of the questions there you have is what software would you recommend for bookkeeping? But so how big or how many properties or how far into it do you actually get a bookkeeper / doing the bookkeeping yourself and all that sort of thing?
Vince, go ahead. You can take that one first.
So say that question once more.
So
bookkeeping.
if you for bookkeeping, if you're just starting out versus you're down the path of a real estate investor, how big or how many properties, that sort of thing, would you recommend getting a bookkeeper and as well rather than just doing the bookkeeping yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're relatively very organized, I mean, if you're at that stage and you're just starting out, by all means, like, it is an additional cost to your business. Your time is valuable, and if you don't have much to bookkeep yet, then sure, like you could definitely self-do it and have Excel sheets, for example, lined up. Definitely you're gonna have an accountant right off the bat because your accountant will help you with a lot of different things, but there may be a certain way that your accountant would like you to do things. So just be really aware of that. Now, of course, in the best case scenario is having like a bookkeeper there for you. So like if you're a little bit further along and you do have a lot going on, yeah, definitely have a bookkeeper, especially if you're not very organized yourself, because you might be potentially leaving a lot of money on the table, for example, or some important documents that are not being tracked properly, and you don't want to get into a situation that may bite you down the road, maybe not right now, but down the road when and if you do get audited and you're like, oh my God, that was like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and you didn't have that tracked properly. So not to scare you or anything like that, but it's important for you to really keep yourself organized. And that from the get-go is the key there. I mean, if you have a little system and you manage to maintain everything, it doesn't really take you that much time and you're very organized, maybe you don't even need a bookkeeper at all. But I mean, that's really up to you at the time at that point, because you want to make sure that you're focusing on like revenue driven activities, like things that are actually going to make you money. So if bookkeeping is not something that is making you money and you don't have to you don't have time for it, then don't waste time doing it. And especially if you don't like to do it yourself either.
I do like to
Hopefully
do
that
it.
answers your question.
Oh yeah, no, I was just confirming.
So I know when you're starting your business, you might want to have a picture of where you're going, what the situations are. So even if you're not doing the bookkeeping, make sure you know how to read it, and you know if anything is missed, etc. From your power team or bookkeeper, then you know it's there. This is how my accountant work with me. I like that because in the beginning he'll give me the very simple worksheet for me to fill in, just so that I report tax on time. And by the time you start to bookkeep yourself, you'll realize, hey, it's gonna take a lot of my time. So we kept mentioning leverage your time, leverage what, and make sure you focus your energy on what's bringing you the most value. So if in the beginning you found that I have to understand where my business is going, that's going to bring you value, then I understand that. However, once you expand, and by the way, this is a very common question because obviously people think it's dreadful, let's be honest. And that's why you need a bookkeeper. So if it's at that point you don't enjoy doing it, it's taking up your time from doing what you need to do, then hire a bookkeeper. Okay. And again, I know this is the time we have, and Vince has contributed a lot. And if you do want to learn more, reach out to a strategy coach. And I know, for example, Victor, you're new here, you don't have a strategy coach yet. Really step by step, start by booking a time to speak to one of our strategy coaches. And ultimately, I do want you to experience what it is like, even though you only have a snapshot, as how we as Trust Your Talent operate and what our value is. So take a picture of that, join the workshop. And Victor, you unmuted yourself. So I want to make sure if you have questions, it's covered.
On those good stuff. Really enjoyed this session. Yeah, I look forward to talking to more people. Yeah. But
Thank you.
maybe I'm taking a different more focus. I'm looking more at setting up funds than investing it on myself. So I'm leveraging more on other people's money. So probably I need more skills in capital raising and etc. etc.
And yes, that's a huge part of investing too. So when it comes to your power team, why do people invest with you? So with Vince and myself, our power team is where joint venture partners want to invest with us. Because Vince and I, how much time do we spend to build up a really solid power team? That's a very good point when it comes to forming a joint partnership where you're looking for OPM.
So for me, it's focusing on how to create my own MIC, how to create my own GPLP, how to create my own mutual fund trust. So that's my focus. Right?
So as long as you're bringing value to your investor, is that what you're thinking?
Oh yeah, of course. You got to define what is their target rate of return and how do I deliver those return to them. You have to be able to articulate what your value proposition are for doing the work you do. Yeah, for sure. So I'm not looking for more like JV or things like that, which is more, everyone is a partner. I'm looking more for passive investors and things like that.
You're looking for passive investors. Thank you. So in case I didn't answer all your questions, book a time with Vince. So we make sure that, hey, you're going to get what you're looking for. Because really, this is a room of 15 people, for example. You might all have very, very different goals, which is it's logical. And for sure, everybody will need a power team and everybody will want to focus on different strategies as well.
I ask how much money you have in the business.
I put about 630,000 into it.
Wow.
Oh, that's a lot.
But because you're a royalty guy, you don't need the money,
630.
right? I mean,
why do you need a shark?
Your most valuable commodity isn't your money, it's your time. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And time gone by is gone forever. I don't have it in me to build another company. My time is past. My main reason for being here is to leave Kenzo in good hands. And by that, I mean with successful, smart, honest, and ethical people like yourselves.
Wow. I love you, baby.
And everything we talked about today, really building your power team, or even if you're focusing on your own bookkeeping, etc., it's about how you leverage your time. How do you want to spend your time? So, for example, if you're thinking about building a really big empire, how much time do you have? Do you want to accelerate that? Find a team, find the connection, find the network to help you reach that point. So that's why we really appreciate you spending your time with us as well. Because again, we're investing our time together. And I do hope we bring value to each other so that we best utilize our time together. I get that. We want to do so much with each other, want to build a team, start an empire, and even go through the contract. So within an hour and a half, you can already see your whole empire being built. However, really, how do we build a huge empire? Is really one brick at a time. So with that, I'm open to questions. So Vincent and I will stay here as long as you have questions. So we want to make sure you're on the right path, because really what's our goal? Our goal is for you to at least, this is a basic seminar. And if you want to bring people who are new to the environment, we welcome them as well. And really the next step is speak to Vince and also look into the workshop. Vince.
Yeah, so first thing is just, if anything, if there's some like personal questions and you want to ask, in more of a private setting, just schedule a call with myself or anyone on the team. We're really here to help you and guide you through your own thought process. And I do have a question in the chat that was sent to me from Angela. So, Angel. So Angel, I don't know if you can turn on your camera so I can see you as well. Your question was, there you are. So your question was, is it a good idea to invest in the maritime area? It's a good idea to, first off, my question to you is, what do you know about investing? That would always be my question, because I could give you a smoking great deal. It's like served on a silver platter for you. And all I said is you just have to put the money together and put the deal together, and that's it. But the thing is, if you don't understand how to invest and you don't have the strategies in place, it doesn't matter if it's the Maritimes or if it's in Toronto or Vancouver. If you don't know how to invest, then it's not going to be a good investment. The best investments are the ones that you create. And no matter if it's in the Maritime or anywhere else, if you know what you're looking for, the best markets generally are the markets where nobody else is looking for. Because if everybody's looking for it, let's say Toronto lining up for a condo, it's not in my opinion, going to be the greatest investment. The more people see the deal, the less lucrative that deal is anymore. The best deals are the ones that actually, the best deal is the one that me and Brooke signed together at a coffee shop and nobody else knows about it because only me and Brooke know it. That's the best deal.
And I know we don't have time to dig into everybody's why and take you step by step. And that's actually an amazing question, because that really takes you back to here, to this. And that's why Vince is here to guide you. Because if you ask a question to say, hey, I'm already in the step of M. So basically, Angel, you throw in a question about the M on the chart. So there's so many components here. I know even though we talk about the theory, and we sound like a broken record because we constantly focus on that. We want you to be successful though. So if you give us an M and ask me, am I in the right place? Let's look at if that's making sense. So if you're thinking about, say, a distressed property, that could work in any market as long as you know how to find money in the buy. And like Vin said, if you're in a market thinking about doing what everybody else is doing, does that make sense before you even get to the property? Okay, That's why we keep bringing you back to follow the system. Vince.
Yeah, and Angel, if you, let's say, for example, was looking at like a buy and hold, and let's say it's like it could be like just a single standard buy and hold property, and you truly understand how to run the numbers and analyze the deal. You can analyze one deal and see what what it yields. Because the thing is, for us as investors, we don't buy underperforming properties, meaning like it's not going to make us money. We buy it with the intention, knowing for a fact it's going to make us money, no matter if it's distressed or anything else. We buy it with the intention to put value into it so that it would yield a return for us. Now, if we go in and we look at it and we analyze the deal and we know for a fact the deal isn't going to make us money, no matter how many strategies I try to turn it, and it's not going to work, either I have to buy it cheaper or I have to move to another market. And if I can't buy it cheaper, I look at another deal, run the numbers again, and the numbers don't make sense again. I run the numbers again on another deal and another deal, let's say 10 different deals, 20 different deals. And each time I run the numbers, for a fact, I do not make money. I know the deal isn't going to perform for me. The question is, would you still want to buy it knowing that the deal isn't going to work? Probably not. And hence, now you can either change the strategy or maybe stack strategies on top of each other to make it work, or you can look into a different market. And at Treasure Talent, the way that we like to teach our students is to be more well-rounded, because the more strategies you understand, the better that you can pivot and change and stack strategies, the more dynamic you are, given that you are now in control, no matter the different markets, because the market is always going to change. The tenant law rules are always going to change. The lending rules will always change. But if you are a good driver in the driver's seat, you can now pivot and change with the market.
And I put this up because Vince talked about the market. Is it going to make sense? Can you pivot? And that's why we say at least you need 3 different exits. If in that market, your idea of holding it is not going to work, can you pivot? If that market only allows one thing, for example, in big cities like Vancouver, Toronto, there's no way you're going to cash flow with a single family home. If you cannot sell it, you cannot flip it as one strategy, what are you going to do? So if you're looking at 3 different exits, do they really exist in that market? And if the strategy you want to focus on doesn't happen in that market, doesn't happen for that property, then look for another market. And that's why, yes, it sounds so basic. At the same time, this is just the system that we're following. And that's why I put up the slide to remind you again, let's look at different exit, different strategy. Is it going to work? So thank you, Vince, for pointing that out. And Angela, I see that you turned on your camera. You can also unmute yourself if you still want to continue the discussion or if you have further questions. By the way, we're not here to pick on anybody. This is really a safe environment. And we always ask you, do you want to hear what you want to hear or what you need to hear? And the intention is really in a learning environment. What can we do? And what can we build upon based on the experience, the system, based on your own situation as well. And thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. I am mindful of your time invested with us today. So we're pretty much on time. Like I said, if you have questions, you can still reach out to me and to Vince as well. All of us, our email is just our first name at trustyourtalent.ca. So it's Vince at trustyourtalent.ca or Brooke at trustyourtalent.ca. All right. Good night, everybody. And thank you for being here with us. Good night.